Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the March Community Matters meeting. It's only councillors here, but I should just remind councillors where the fire exits are. Councillors, fire exit through the rear door there, or through the side door there. Should there be a fire, there's no alarm or practice alarm expected tonight, and were the fire alarm to go off, the assembly point is in the car park opposite the folk hall. Thank you. Apologies for absence. We've got apologies from the chair, Emma, and I'm standing in for her. Any other apologies, Steve?
No, that's it.
Thanks. So, declarations of councillors' interests and requests for dispensations. To request any declarations of interest or requests for dispensations relating to the business to be transacted. None that I'm aware of.
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 Thank you, everybody. So, Chairman's update report. Quite a few things to update people on here. The first of these is to flag up that North Somerset Council is reviewing the structure and boundaries of the town and parish councils to ensure they reflect local identities, provide effective governance and serve communities efficiently. The consultation gives residents, businesses and community groups the opportunity to share their views on what works well and what could be improved. In stage one, the council is gathering feedback and suggestions to identify areas where change may be needed. And in stage two, we'll consider specific options for change. And as a group of councillors, I think we're talking about this amongst ourselves over the next couple of days with suggestions for how things, whether we want more councillors, whether the boundaries are right and that sort of thing. But the consultation is available online, so members of the public, if you want to go there and feedback, please do so. Next item of feedback is marina safety railings. Yeah.
So, Max, for the recording.
That's one there.
Let's see, Mike.
You mentioned that the councillors are going to be having discussions amongst themselves about the numbers of councillors, boundaries within and beyond. Does that mean that we don't need to have that discussion tonight? We will have it outside of here and bring it back to another meeting?
Yes, it's only on the agenda for the chairman's update report, so
Right.
It's not an agenda item. It's just to let you know it's going on, and members of the public know that the consultation closes at the end of April.
Right.
But I think is it being discussed in the business meeting on Friday?
Yeah, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
we don't miss that opportunity.
So that's a councillor only discussion.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Marina safety railings. North Somerset Council are drawing up a tender specification for use by the council. As the cost of these works are likely to exceed 30,000, the council will be required to advertise the tenders on the government's Find a Tender service. We heard last month from Wild Portishead, we had some fantastic presentations about Swifts and Swift boxes. Following that meeting, Wild Portishead have now procured Swift boxes and tested the Wi-Fi connection at the folk hall. Locations for the boxes have been identified under the eaves at the front of the hall, and installation is now planned. Mike.
Following this morning's hall meeting, I think the outcome is that it's not as easy as it seems. Unfortunately, it's above the height of safety in relation to going up on a ladder. And so as a consequence, it could be scaffolding or a cherry picker to get up there to put them in. So it's going to have to come back, I guess, to committee because there'll be a cost involved.
Oh gosh, that's unfortunate, isn't it?
It is very unfortunate, but that was the outcome of the discussion, I believe, that was held this morning.
I guess an alternative location could be found on the town council building.
Well, I understand that it has to be on the west-facing wall. That's the only one. And presumably it's got to be pretty high up. I mean, I did notice, I was given a walk through Long Ashton where there are a number of these Swift boxes installed on domestic houses, which right up at the eaves. And I think someone went up there on a ladder to do them. But health and safety and contractors, and unless one of us is prepared to go up and do it.
I was just going to ask whether it could be brought down to a more reasonable height that could be done, but I guess not.
I'm not sure. No, I don't
Oh.
think so. Speak to the experts.
So has that been taken forward in some shape or form, Mike?
I guess so, Steve. Yeah.
Yes, Chair. Well, we are going to check with Wild Portishead to see if there is another suitable location on the building anywhere where we can reach with a ladder. Obviously, that will get the cost right down. If not, then cherry picker. I think we're going to need to get the contractors have got access to a cherry picker, so hopefully it won't be too much. So,
Okay, thanks.
Can I just ask for my own, is that the west wall over there? That the front one is the west wall. Right, thank you.
I just thought I'd ask the question. I presume these birds create mess. So is there an issue about the mess they generate? No.
Apparently they don't.
I think when Wild Portishead came to the last meeting, they said that they don't create a mess. They're one of the few birds that nest that don't kick a load of stuff out.
Okay. Beech Tree in Heavens Lane. Following the last meeting, Steve the Locum Clerk has submitted a planning application for removal of the tree adjoining Redcliffe Bay Hall. Steve, any update on that?
no, I haven't heard. I know it's been registered, but I've heard that it's been registered, but I don't know whether it'll appear on the planning agenda next week. I don't know.
Mike?
I can confirm it is on the planning agenda next week, but I think you have to make a decision this evening as to whether you want it felled to ground level or left as a stump, or they call it a monolith, I think.
Yes, Chair, I strongly recommend that you go for the monolith option. It has quite a rich habitat value, actually. A rotting trunk.
Your decision.
No, it's not yours.
Oh, that's planning, all right.
We just need to get on with that as soon as all the approvals are in place, don't we? Before it gets into leaf and becomes a really big job.
Yeah, yes. I mean, if you've not read the report, it is on the planning application list. And Peter Malafant had consultants in to do a survey, and I was amazed at how involved this survey was, taking ultrasonic sounding throughout the whole of the trunk. And their conclusion was that if it didn't come down now, it would have to come down in the next 12 months.
Sorry, Chair, if I could just ask, was the planning application that we put in to trim it back to a monolith then, or to fully remove it, or was it
Both.
not? It was for both, was that? Right, that's fine. So, yeah, so planning are going to either approve or not approve either or then, I guess, are they? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
But you as a committee might have a view on that, and as it's on your agenda.
It's on the agenda as an update, Mike, rather than as an article for us to make comments on, I think. So let's not overcomplicate. If that's okay with everybody. Three other items to update you on. There's a drop-in session this Friday between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock for the public in the folk hall. Secondly, I've been asked to flag that Great Western Air Ambulance Charity, who our council regularly fund, are opening a shop on the High Street, 49 the High Street, which is the old electrics shop, Freeman's, I think. That's due to open on Tuesday, the 22nd. It's a taster morning, sorry, on Tuesday, the 22nd of April for would-be volunteers to go along to. So I think that'd be useful for us to put out in our comms at the end of this meeting, potentially. And thirdly, in terms of additional updates, we've now, or North Somerset Council has put out for consultation the latest BSIP plans to view the Portishead Main Transport Hub Design Survey. It's up on the North Somerset consultation web page. You have until the 2nd of April. Visit Portishead Precinct outside Somerset Hall on Wednesday, the 2nd of April, between 9:30 and 2 o'clock to speak to the BSIP team. So we can flag up the links. I think Amy's already done that, but we can check if that's happened. I just wonder, is the town council planning to put in a response to the plans, our own response? Do you know, Mike?
I don't know the answer to that, but it is a little bit more involved than it seems insofar as a bus hub, because they are going to plan to tweak the routes and there'll be a loss of some of the parking spaces on the high street. The ones outside Oxfam, all 4 of those are planned to be removed with a bus stop put there, and the precinct bus stop to be removed and the loading bay put there. The precinct bus lay-by will be increased in length. The Coombe Road site will be closed, bus stop there, and I think there'll be a relocation of a disabled space, but I think there's more room there for parking. There'll be pedestrian crossing, the one that exists between coming across to Coffee Lab, that will be removed, and it'll be shifted up the road towards Carey's. And the 3 or 4 spaces there, parking space will be removed. Those are the plans. So there'll be a total loss of some spaces. Outside the sorting office, there'll be 4 spaces there allocated. So the ones outside Oxfam will be shifted up there, and that bus stop will be removed.
And that's the High Street option, and the other option is Harbour Road?
Yeah, that's less controversial insofar as it's just enhancing the bus stop.
Okay.
With 1 or 2 additional bits.
So should we as a town council express a preference for one or other of those? And if so, who would
well, I've personally asked for a site meeting with one of the team to walk through the high street and discuss these things. I mean, some of the proposals did come from us. I mean, moving the pedestrian crossing, not necessarily removing the one that exists already, but certainly having one closer to the mini roundabout, if indeed they were going to move the Coombe Road stop, which they're planning now to do, and just concentrate on the precinct bus stop as the main hub where the bus can be laying over, because there'll be a space for 2 buses there, and removing the taxi rank there, which I don't think it's ever used really, is it? But yeah, so I think it could work quite well.
Would you want to put it? I don't know what the closing date for the consultations. Does anyone happen to know?
I think it's the end of the month, end of April.
Okay, Janet.
My concern is for disabled parking spaces. Will there be the same number? There aren't very many disabled parking spaces in the high street anyway. And if any are removed, it'll make life very difficult.
Well, the only one that's mentioned on the scheme is the one outside Coombe Road, bus stop. In other words, they'll shift by moving that bus stop outside previous solicitors. They'll have a disabled bay there, but there's probably room for at least another couple of car lengths, I would have thought.
Okay, so do I ask you to put that forward, or do I go and speak to them myself?
Yeah, I can.
Thank you, because they're just so few, and it's a bit of a fight to get one.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. But having discussed it, I mean, I'm sure we've all got views on how the operation of the buses could be working in the high street to be more advantageous for the public and the siting of bus stops.
So is your suggestion we should submit comments as individual councillors, or do you think it would be useful to put a town council
Well, you're
response?
very welcome to feed them into me, and then
Okay.
I can make a council response
Fantastic.
if that was the appropriate way to do it. Yeah, sure, I'm happy to do that.
Thanks, Mark. Bob?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we do get a site visit and an understanding before we make any decision as a group of councillors. To answer your question, as I understand, there is a possible chance to have 3 additional bays once the Coombe Road bus stop's removed. And as Mike says, one of them will be disabled. I mean, there is potential to have 2 disabled bays there. Again, that needs to be discussed on the site visit. We also have the point of raised curbs, because obviously the bus stops has raised curbs. They need to be dropped back down to normal.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of questions that we need to ask before we can respond, I think.
Sorry to raise this as well. The Oxfam parking spaces are the only ones down that end, and to lose those means it's going to be very much more difficult for people who do have issues with walking to be able to get to that area of the high street.
I agree, Janet, and I was wondering whether, in fact, the curtilage outside the Poacher could, in fact, be incorporated as a bus stop, so that it could get shifted up towards the entrance to the Poacher and still leave 1 or 2 bays accessible outside Oxfam for parking.
And also, of course, there's a dropping off of goods for
Yeah.
Oxfam too, which is
Quite.
almost impossible anyway, unless there's
Yeah.
a
But as Bob says, I think we do need to have a site visit, which I requested yesterday, but I've not heard from North Somerset Council. David, you mentioned that there was a public forum in the precinct, did you, which I wasn't aware of?
Yeah, there's one on the 2nd of
Or,
Next week,
between
isn't it?
9:30 and 2 p.m. to speak to the PSIP team.
2nd of April next
Yeah.
week.
So the conclusion of that discussion is that we ask councillors to feed back their own comments to Mike, possibly join him on the site visit if and when it happens. And Mike, you're happy to act as a conduit for feedback. Thank you.
9 till 2.
9:30 till 2. So that's the end of the chair's update. Now for public participation. Do we have anyone from the public online? And no one in the room, so no public participation today. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of previous meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of February 2025 circulated be approved as a correct record and signed by the chair. So, Roger, are you happy to propose?
Happy to propose those, yes.
And Jenny second. All those in favour? Thank you. So we were at this point due to have a presentation from the Citizens Advice Network in Portsmouth Youth Centre, but they're not here. So I guess we should ask Nikki to get back in contact with them and invite them to our next Community Matters meeting. Next item is Portsmouth Town Council emergency plan. So this is something that a number of us have been discussing. And whilst the police, fire and health services are obviously the main responders in the event of a serious incident, it's likely that in the event of a major incident, such as extensive flooding affecting multiple communities in North Somerset, local response agencies may be overwhelmed, and it's likely that the town council team will be called upon to support residents. So this agenda item is proposing that we form a small working group of town councillors supported by by Nikki Mills, our community relationships manager, to come up with a brief plan and series of contact numbers to enable us to, first of all, review what our responses might be and enable us to respond in a coordinated way should an emergency arise, and one that doesn't interfere with the primary responders in the event of this. And the proposal is that that working group should consist of Emma Blackmore, Jenny Eastman, Alan George, myself and Mike Rees, together with the Community Services Officer. So any questions or Roger?
Yep, no, just to say that it's a great idea. I fully support it. I think it's something we need to do. Was it Storm Dara? Was that the one that we had? Did I pronounce that right? I'm not sure. Where it became apparent that, I mean, fortunately, it wasn't that bad, was it? There was a couple of trees down and stuff like that, but it became apparent that if it was worse, then there was a hole in the information and how it spread around. We don't know who the vulnerable people are that would need some assistance. North Somerset know who they are. But if it was much worse, then they would be overwhelmed and they wouldn't be able to get that information to us. Fortunately, it wasn't that bad. So we dodged a bullet there, but I think it's something that fits well for the town council to be able to be maybe a facilitator in that area of getting the right information to the right people and making sure that we know who the vulnerable people are and that they're supported. I mean, it could be a storm, we could be snowed in, it could be a flood, could be anything, couldn't it? Hopefully it's none of those, but if we're prepared for it, then it just means that should anything happen, we're ready to deal with it. So yes, no, I fully support the proposal.
Forgive me for preempting your first meeting as coordinating this response, but with my sitting on the hall's restoration hat on, the two rooms out the back, which are currently empty, and I know that with Mike coming back on Monday, there'll be sort of plans put afoot to use those. But if there was going to be an emergency where, for example, you had to get people sleeping in here, and the decision that you made as a subcommittee was that you bought a dozen sleeping mats and sleeping bags and such like, they'll need somewhere to store. And it could be that one of these rooms out there is suited to that purpose. So I would suggest that, you know, before they get used, you kind of put this forward as a suggestion.
Thanks, Mike. That's a good steer.
Yeah, maybe the clerk can answer this question. Obviously, if there's an emergency group, that will have to be handed over to the new council. So does that get implemented in some sort of handover as the new council comes in every 4 years?
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to initiate the work and then hand it over to a new council. Yeah, I mean, the role of town and parish councils is relatively a supportive role to the primary responders. So, you know, the police and the fire service will turn up at the incident, whatever it happens to be, and if they decide that evacuation is needed or that particular equipment is needed, then, you know, your local civil resilience plan will identify who to contact, how to access the facilities and services that you've got available. So your halls will be listed there. Any equipment that you have that might be of use during a flood or a gas leak, you know, can also be listed in your plan, so that the first responders will just be able to say, town council, get us access to your hall.
Because obviously, you know, every 4 years, you know, some councillors may stay, but there'll be new councillors, so that have to be really written in for the format for the new councillors.
Thanks, Bob. And not wishing to preempt what we come up with, but the idea would be to have something relatively simple, to have it listing roles rather than named individuals, and for it to include a list of emergency contact numbers for the town council to contact to ensure proper liaison. So hopefully that'd be relatively transferable across from one council to the next. Obviously, this could be a major undertaking. But the idea is to keep it relatively simple, just so we're not on the back foot should this arise. And Roger's mentioned the flooding, but there's also COVID in recent experience, and there've been a couple of chemical incidents down at Avonmouth back in the 90s. So there are all sorts of things that could happen, but happen pretty infrequently. Hopefully. Janet.
There is the issue, of course, that the new council wouldn't be interested in taking this role on. If it was like the previous councils to Portishead Independence, they wouldn't have had any truck with it whatsoever. So don't expect that if it's a change of council in a big way, that we could transfer these things on.
Sorry, Roger.
I was going to say, I think it's incumbent upon us, if we're going to put this forward, to try and bake it into this council's processes as business as usual. We can't affect what a future council will or won't do, but if it's baked in at officer level, then there's every chance that it will continue on. I just wanted to point out that some years ago, they were building houses next to my house down in the Vale, and the entire Vale was shut at both ends, and everybody was evacuated from it because they found a World War II unexploded bomb. Fortunately, they exploded it in a controlled fashion at about 6 p.m. that day, and we all got back home in time for tea. But it could have been a lot different, couldn't it? Someone could have set the bomb off instead of just finding it, and there could have been a whole load of people who needed to be relocated somewhere. And it would be great if we had a team that could step up at that stage and make sure that they were there to assist the local people in getting the right information to them.
Absolutely, really helpful. The only other thing for me to note really is from preliminarily looking at the information on North Somerset Council's website, 2 out of the 4 emergency evacuation centres in Portishead would probably be underwater if the most likely civil emergency occurred, which is a flood. So that's the library and Parish Wharf Leisure Centre. And going back to your comment about the focal mic, we'd need to look at that, I guess, as well in terms of storing anything here if this is within the flood risk area. Okay, so the recommendation is that also Town Council convenes a working group to review emergency planning advice for Portishead and produce summary guidance for Town Council officers and councillors. Would anyone like to propose that? Roger, anyone like to second it? Bob, thank you. All those in favour? And next is Portishead Town Council environmental policy to consider the sustainability and carbon reduction manager's report. And the recommendation is that the committee approves the environmental policy and recommends that it's adopted by the full council. So anyone got any comments on Lynn's report? I had a couple of suggestions which I've fed back to Lynn separately about consulting with some of our local groups, Turn the Tide, Wild Portishead on it. But the plan is for this to be a living document, and she's intending to meet with those organisations soon, I think. And there were a couple of other small things that I fed back to improve the document, but I think with those changes we'll be able to recommend it to council. The other changes where we put in a little map explaining what the circular economy was, and just re-emphasise our offer to residents that should they want to do community weeding, we'd be happy to support that under the issue relating to pesticide use in the town. So in the absence of any other comments, are the committee happy to, someone happy to propose it? Yes, Marion,
Sorry,
thank you.
Chair,
Anyone
are
happy to
we,
second?
just for clarity, are we proposing to accept it in full subject to the amendments that you just mentioned?
Yes, we are.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
May I just raise one point, and that is in relation to the release of balloons and Chinese lanterns. Now, it always upsets me when you see this happening in other places. If it did happen here, and how does it get controlled, or who's going to go and say to the people, please don't do this? I mean, or the slap on the wrist if it happens.
That is in the policy, isn't it? What would you suggest?
I don't know. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you can understand why some people want to show their, well, I don't know what it is really that causes people to want to do that, but
Depends on the person you're facing.
exactly. Yes, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, it's the same sort of situation as what happened down at the marina.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue across the board, really, which is the enforcement of policies. Whether it's down to police, local government, it is that's probably one of the biggest problems. Is how do you enforce that without disrupting?
I think in time, one hopes that it will just become unacceptable to the point where people will feel embarrassed to do it if they are going to be doing it.
That's my sense as well. My sense is with the policy is about raising awareness. Having it in the policy raises public awareness of this as an important, as an additional issue. And you'd hope that good citizens would do it. I mean, we're not a police force, so I think it has to depend on just awareness and people pointing out the issue.
Chair, I fully agree. The policy isn't there as an enforcement document. The aims of the policy are quite clear: to promote good practice, not to enforce good practice. Unless, of course, the government wishes to legislate on some of these things, in which case then the police can enforce it.
Hopefully with Turn the Tide and for Plastic Free Portishead, we're going to share that information, and we're going to, I think it's with information and passing that knowledge around that people become more aware that we're not going to have single-use plastic, and then hopefully no more balloons and things like that. And I think it'll just be common knowledge, hopefully going forward soon. We hope. Okay,
thank you, everybody. Roger, you had some fantastic wording for that slight change of the recommendation we're going to vote on. Do you remember what it was? To recommend we accept the policy with the minor amendments that we've talked about.
Yeah, with the minor amendments as proposed by you. I think you're going to work with Lynn to just get those embedded in the document, and we're going to approve it once those are embedded. Yeah. So with the improvements as discussed, I think is said. Yeah.
So,
happy to propose.
Aaron's proposed it. I'm happy to second it. All those in favour? Next, the Wyndham Way public toilets. Following our last meeting, the toilets were inspected. It was found that the radar key mechanism was broken, unfortunately. Therefore, the facility has now been closed and the cleaning contract has been cancelled. Members met with officers 2 days ago this week to consider the next steps with the community toilet project. And I think Nikki is leading on taking that forward now. So that's just an update, really. Was there anything else to add, Roger?
No, I was just going to say, extremely disappointed. I am extremely disappointed that that we cannot continue to keep these toilets open I'm massively disappointed in the people who took it upon themselves to continually vandalise this facility to get it to the point where it's no longer viable for the town council to open. We tried for years, haven't we, to keep this open, and it feels we've been fighting a losing battle against a very small proportion of people who choose to take it into their own hands to vandalise them. So yeah, I just wanted to say how disappointed I was in certain people in the community for doing that. I don't know who they are. If they ever listen to this, maybe they'll know who they are and feel sorry for it. I hope we get a good community loo system up and running as soon as possible. It's vital for certain parts of our community to have access to toilets. I don't think I need to elaborate on that point.
Thanks, Roger. Really important, because I know we had a couple of impassioned talks about from our residents about the need to keep public toilets in some shape or form open. So yeah, and very disappointing about the levels of vandalism. Okay. So that's just about the end of the agenda. Next item is communications, and to agree a communications plan for items from this meeting. I would guess the key things are flagging the residents' meeting on this Friday, flagging the BSIP visit on Wednesday the 2nd of April, 9:30 to 2 o'clock, putting that out in our comms. Anything else?
Air ambulance.
The air ambulance, that's right. The volunteer taster morning on Tuesday, the 22nd of April, 10 till 12 o'clock at number, I think I said 49 the High Street earlier, it's 47 High Street, which is the old Freeman's shop. Anything else? Bob?
Just wonder if Roger, in his lovely wisdom, can have a chat with North Somerset over the BSIP meeting. As I know you haven't attended a lot of the bus meetings that me and Janet have attended, and a lot of the issues is the meetings were never heading towards the afternoon or early evening, so a lot of people didn't actually get to them. And again, it's a 9 till 2, which seems to be a bit of a short period for people to actually go to talk to the people from the BSIP team.
Thank you, Bob. I'm seeing Hannah tomorrow. I'll raise it with her.
To add to that, the people who really do use the bus services won't be available at that time, because they're the people who go to work and come back on the bus, won't have any say.
I mean, would you indulge me for a couple of minutes? I would like to put this on public record as a request of the landlord at the ship, Vic. And we don't have a full council meeting for some considerable time. So if you would allow me to make a little statement now, thank you. There I was on Monday evening at pretty close to opening time, having a pint with a friend. And suddenly, half an hour in, Mike was shouted. And I thought, come quick. So I rushed out, and there he was at the defib machine. And there was a young lad there, about 11 years old, and he was the one that had come up to get the defibrillator for an event that something was happening down at his house in Pembroke Road. Anyway, got the code, opened the door, gave it to him, and off he ran. Within about 20 minutes, a Lions member turned up to replace the one that had been removed, put it back in the box, closed it up and everything. And then later I wasn't there all that evening, but sometime later, the used one came back, and that was taken away as well, and refreshed or replaced and things. I was very impressed by seeing it all in action. It's the first time I've seen a defib box being opened, and the actual kit being taken out, and Yes, the ambulance turned up apparently after about 20 minutes and also to deal with the incident, but yeah, they're good on the lines. No, I don't. No, I mean, we offered to go and help him, but we were assured that there was someone there who was dealing with the incident in question.
Thanks, Mike. That's absolutely fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I declare the meeting over. The date of the next meeting is Wednesday, the 23rd of April, 2025. Thanks everyone for coming along and for the useful discussions.